The real dangers of the diesel shortage that no one is talking about. By now, you must have heard, the US only has about 25 days of diesel fuel left, which sounds bad, and it is. Actually, it's worse than it sounds, and not just for the United States, but for the rest of the world as well. But what does it really mean to you and I? I've seen so many people, including Tucker Carlson on Fox News, talking about this, but no one has done the research to explain the problems, the risks, the reasons, and the effects. So, in this video, I will break it all down. What's really happening, what this shortage means, why it's really happening, how to fix it, and what you need to be aware of so you can navigate this correctly for yourself, your business, and your family. So let's go. All right, welcome back. Now, we have a video today where I'm going to dive into some research to help you understand what's going on, because most of the information you're getting is not conclusive, at least what I've been able to see. So I figured, well, I'll go do my research on my own. I wanted to know what was going on, and I might as well share it with you. Now, I'm going to ask you a favor. I don't ask a lot of you guys. I spend a lot of time making this content, but I'm going to ask something of you, and that is, don't just listen to these videos. I want you to take these ideas, these videos, and think about them, and then go discuss them with other people. Samuel Adams said, it doesn't take a majority to prevail, but a small, irate minority keen on setting brush fires in the minds of men, which is why I use that term, lighting brush fires. So don't just watch this video. Take these ideas, go discuss them. Most people have all the wrong information. You're gonna have the right information now. Just go discuss these ideas. Now, if you wanna share the video, great, go ahead and share the video as well, but at least go discuss these ideas. Okay, so what's really going on? Let's understand what's really at play here. If you're listening to the President Biden on Twitter, which of course he doesn't write his own Twitter, but if you're listening to that, you're getting all the wrong information. So what is really happening here? Well, of course, as the headline says, the diesel supply, the diesel gasoline that we have is at a 20-year low. It's 20% below our 5-year average. We have a very, very, very short supply of diesel. Now, it's not just a short supply. As a matter of fact, the last time we've been this short was October of 1951. But during that time, we had 102 days of supply. Today, we have only 25 days of supply. All right, so that's pretty bad. 25 days. The worst ever was 102. Sounds really, really bad. Now let's break this down a little bit. So first of all, this doesn't mean that in 25 days we're going to be out of diesel. It's not what it means. So just put that at rest. What it does mean is that we are so far behind production, we're using more than we can consume, that our savings, our reserve is dwindling down. So typically we have a much bigger reserve in case, like a hurricane takes out the Gulf Coast, for example. We'd have a reserve and we'd have about 100 days. The lowest we had was 100 days of reserve. Now we have 25 days of reserve. So it doesn't mean we're going to run out in 25 days, as much as your fear porn videos want to tell you that. It's not the case. But what we are seeing is we're seeing skyrocketing price in an already very, very fragile economy. Now you have to understand that we're seeing the economy be fragmented. It's being broken down. And so what does that mean? That means that we're seeing different pain points in different areas. So depending on where you live in the country or the world, this is going to affect you differently. So for example, what we can see here is diesel truck stop actual price per gallon in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And what we can see is that the average price of diesel being $4.70 here, but in Pennsylvania being $6. So it's so much worse there than it is on the average for the country. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because if you're in the Northeast, for example, it's going to be a much bigger problem for you. If you are a truck driver, it could be a much bigger problem for you than if you drive an EV. All right. Although it's going to affect everybody. And the reason why is because, as you can see in this picture, diesel is what moves the world, right? Electric vehicles, they barely move anything. Gas vehicles move some, but it's the diesel fuel that delivers all the goods and services. It's what is all the transportation industry. So all the packages going back and forth across the country on diesel. Agriculture, all the farm equipment, it's all diesel. All the manufacturing, all diesel. Heating your homes, that's diesel. And the reason why I say this is because this literally changes everything that we know. Imagine just that product you got off Amazon Whoever manufactured that product had to get different inputs. All of that had shipping costs to get there. Then maybe they sent it somewhere else to get a sub-assembly put together, shipped it back over here to get the packaging put together. They had to get the boxes shipped, the packaging material shipped. They had to put it all together. Then they had to ship it to you. Think about how many shipping inputs went into getting that package to you, and they're all going to go up because of diesel fuel here. The food. It's more diesel fuel on the farm to grow the food, and then more diesel fuel on the tractor to move it back to processing, and then to move from processing to here, and then to the store. So everywhere along the supply chain, all the prices get more expensive. All right, so that's how far it's going to affect us. But let's just stop and think about this shortage for a minute. Now, like I said, this doesn't mean we're going to run out in 25 days, but we do need to understand what's going on, how long this potentially lasts, what the effects are, and then of course, why this is really happening. Now, shortages are nothing new. We run out of shortages all the time. All right, in a society, we sometimes buy more, we don't have enough, we have supply chain issues, things like that. It's nothing new. They're typically painful, but they're manageable. Now, there's a saying, and the saying is that high prices are the cure for high prices. So what does that mean? Well, as the prices of things go up, people buy less of them. So there's less demand. And at the same time, because the prices are going up so high, other people will come in to solve that need. So at the same time, you get less demand and you get more supply to alleviate that problem, typically. But what we could see is we could see some cities running dry. So as I already showed you in the price discrepancies, if you're in the Northeast, it could be a very big problem. If you're in other parts of the country, you may not notice a big problem, except for you're going to notice higher costs everywhere. And like I said, not just if you're trying to fill up your diesel truck, I'm talking about every single price, an entire drag on the overall very fragile economy. As if we're not already in a dangerous situation enough as it is, now we're going to see the prices of everything going up because of this. Now that you understand that, you might ask yourself, why is this happening? And it's certainly not because of what President Biden is saying. Now, what he's saying, of course, is it's all Putin's fault, and it's all about the war on Russia. Now, that certainly is exaggerating it, but it's definitely not the blame. So we know that the U.S. banned all Russian imports of fuel. We've banned Russian imports of everything, and what we can see is that it's taken a big toll. So this is a chart showing all the imports from Russia that we've had, and right here you can see in April, right here was the last month, and then we have imported 0 for every single month after that. So supply and demand. We've had less diesel coming in from Russia. Now you might ask yourself, if the U.S. is or used to be a self-sustaining country, why do we need the imports from Russia? We're going to get to that. But what we can see is that it's not just the United States that has sanctioned Russia. Not the whole world, many other parts of the world have also sanctioned Russia as well. And we can see this playing out, which is only exaggerated the problem. Here's an article from Bloomberg. U.S. exports more diesel. So the U.S. is running short on diesel, but the U.S. is exporting diesel at a time when we need it and the costs of everyone's going up and we might have shortages, but we're exporting more diesel as global shortages fuel the competition. So it's not just a problem in the United States, it's the whole world. We can see that Europe is scrambling for diesel. Europe needs it. They're scrambling as the supply fears mount. Latin America, the buyers are paying up. So they're paying more. So now we have this global competition. Who's going to pay the most? The U.S. pay the most, Europe pay the most, or Latin America pay the most. And so this is causing a big problem. And we can see here, U.S. fuel exports are draining domestic diesel and gasoline supplies. Exports. At a time we don't have enough, at a time when the American people can't even afford this, we are exporting because the rest of the world is in a dangerous situation. But why? What happened? It seemed like it wasn't that long ago that the world had plenty of diesel fuel. So what is actually behind all this? Is all Putin's fault? And as I said, I thought the United States was energy independent. That's what Trump used to say. Well, let's dig into that. All right, so it's not just the price of the oil. So President Biden has been all over Twitter lately. I've been retweeting some of his stuff. If you're not following me on Twitter, you should. It's just the #1 @1MarkMoss. You can find me on social media, on Instagram and Twitter there. But he's been all over saying that the oil companies are greedy. They're booking record profits on the price per oil, but the gasoline at the pump is still too high. Well, you don't put oil in your car, all right? It needs to go to a refinery, and they take the oil and they refine it and they turn it into gas or they turn it into diesel. The problem that we have in the United States specifically is we have too few refineries, all right? At the gas station, on average, they make about 2 cents of profit per gallon. 2 cents of profit per gallon. In California, they put about $1 of tax per gallon. So they're saying, oh, these gas stations, they're too greedy, they're charging too much. They're charging 2 cents. Now that's best case scenario. The tax is $1. Who's greedy? Anyway, the problem is we have too few refineries. Now why? Why do we have too few refineries? That is where we need to look at. So we can see diesel and gas refining capacity is too low to meet demand. Again, we didn't used to have this problem, now we do. Why? That's what we should always be asking. It seems like things used to work, now they don't. What changed? Well, what changed is that we don't have enough refineries anymore. Why is that? Well, it's for a number of reasons. What we can see here, this is the refinery output going all the way back here. What is this, 1985? And what I want to show you is this shows the amount of gallons or barrels that each refinery puts out, or total amount they put out. And what we can see right here in 2022, the latest number that we have of output, we haven't seen that low of output since back here in 2015. So we're basically back to where we were in 2015. So 2016 produced more, 2017 produced more, 18 produced more, 19 produced more, 20 produced more, and now we're going backwards. Now we're producing less and less and less and less. Why are we producing less diesel and gasoline when we obviously need it? Well, the reason why is because it's too expensive. What we can see is that it says here, more than 1 million barrels a day of the country's oil refining capacity, or about 5% overall, has shut. They've shut it down. They've shut the refineries down. Why? It's shut since the beginning of the pandemic. Elsewhere in the world, capacity has also shrunk by 2.13 million additional barrels a day. So in the US, we've shrunk our refining capacity. In the world, it's also shrunk as well. It says that there's no plans to bring new US plants online. Seems kind of weird, right? High prices are supposed to be the cure of high prices. So if prices have gone up and there's more profit, wouldn't it make sense for more refineries to come back online to deliver to meet the demand? But it says there's no US plants coming back online, even though refiners are reaping record profits. So wait, if they're reaping record profits, why aren't there more refineries coming? It says the supply squeeze is only going to get worse. So this problem is not getting better. The amount of refinery capacity is going down. This diesel shortage that we're making a video about right now and you're hearing is only going to get worse. The price of gasoline you pay is only going to go up. Why? At a time when it's expected to get worse, or better for them, why would no new plants be coming online? It doesn't make any sense. Well, it sort of does. It says exacerbating some of the worst inflation American households have ever seen. So prices are going up so fast, American households have never seen it this bad, because remember, as I said, if the price of energy goes up, the price of everything goes up. East Coast is on the brink of a diesel shortage that risks crippling already strained supply chains. We don't need any more supply chain disruptions, or what happens? Oh, that's right, more inflation, more prices going up. At a time when the Biden administration is 100% focused on getting inflation down, they're not taking care of the number one driver of inflation and risk. Eventual transition, it says here, the reason why is the eventual transition towards a cleaner energy makes their long-term business model unprofitable and makes them less likely to attract buyers. So we don't have any new refineries because it's not economically viable. Let's take a look at this. How can it not be economically viable when they're making record profits and those profits are expected to continue? Well, it says nothing about the current environment is promoting investments in fossil fuels. So it takes a lot of money to invest into fossil fuels. It takes a lot of money to invest in new oil wells. It takes a lot of money to invest into new refineries to build them out. It takes a long time and it costs a lot of money. And so in the current environment, when the president has come on saying his goal was to shut down fossil fuels, who would want to invest into that? And the answer is, of course, nobody would. It says it's a 15 to 20 year payback on most of these investments. So I'm going to have to spend however many hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars to open up a refinery, but it's going to take me 15 to 20 years to get my money back out of that. But the Biden administration says their goal is to shut all that down. So why would I invest that money if there's probably no chance of me getting it back? The answer is I wouldn't. Phillips 66, for example, would have to spend more than $1 billion, not to build something new, just to restart its Alliance refinery in Louisiana. So it's shut down after damage from Hurricane Ida. It shut down, it got damaged. It would cost them $1 billion just to repair the damage and get it back online. They don't want to do that. It says here, as for selling those assets, so hey, we don't want to spend the $1 billion, maybe somebody else will, maybe we'll sell it. As for selling those assets to someone who could ramp up production, no one's buying. No one wants to buy them. Even as industry players are sitting on piles of cash, quote, we feel we've got higher returns and better uses for the capital to employ than buying a refinery that's on the market at this point in time, the Valero CEO said. Hey, look, we got the money, but we'll find better things to do with the money because there's no way we're going to put all that money into something that we'll never get our money back out of because the current administration says they're trying to shut us down. You're starting to see what the problem is here. All right, now, this leads to no new ones are coming online. So do you think the problem is going to get better or worse? So what's next? Well, what we do know is that we can expect more closures. More of these plants are going online. Now, the problem is we have so few refineries. Some of these refineries that are running are over 100 years old. And they're running at maximum capacity. Some of them are running at 100% capacity, which means they need to shut down sometimes to like service and do maintenance, so they should be running at like 85% capacity. If they run at 100% capacity, that means they're going too fast and they're probably going to break. In addition, the ones that we have left are really concentrated around the Gulf Coast. Now, what if we get a really big hurricane that comes in the Gulf Coast and causes any sort of disruption, maybe a week or two disruption? Well, that 25 days of savings could dwindle down to 7 days, or could dwindle down to nothing. So we know that there's going to be more closures coming because there's no repairs going into them. We also know that Russian oil logistics is in chaos ahead of more looming sanctions. There's a whole nother batch of sanctions that's supposed to go through in the next couple of months, and the world doesn't know what to do about it. Because if we continue cutting off more supply, we've already cut off the supply in the US, we've already done it to ourselves. We did it to ourselves. And now we're cutting off the rest from the world. It's not rocket science here. It's not rocket science. In addition to that, now it's the whole world, so now we have competition. So check this out. Traders divert. That means there was a shipment heading for Europe. It was Europe bound of diesel, and now it's going to the US. So there was a ship. It said the two regions battle for supplies amid an acute shortage and soaring prices. Two tankers carrying 90,000 tons of diesel and jet fuel are heading from Europe to the US. The diesel is from the United Arab Emirates, UAE, and on Thursday it changed its destination. So it left the UAE heading for Europe, where they really need diesel as well because they need to move stuff around as well. And the US, the traders, bought it and said, whoa, whoa, don't go there. We'll pay you more money to come over here. What does that do? Well, if anything, it pushes the prices up even higher, which is what? More inflation, which of course is what? The problem the Biden administration is supposedly trying to fix, but of course they're not. All they're doing is exaggerating this problem. Now we can see another US refinery is slated to close. It's only getting worse. We can see here another US refinery is planning to close by 2024, maybe earlier, joining 6 others that have already shuttered. It's slated to close at the end of 2023 due to the financial burden of upgrading its infrastructure. Remember, like I said, some of these are over 100 years old. The financial burden of upgrading its infrastructure and to advance its decarbonization goals pushed by the Biden admin. So the Biden administration has put all these regulations on these refineries, these decarbonization goals. They can't even afford to keep the plants going. They can't afford to put the necessary repairs into them, much less meet these new decarbonization goals that the Biden administration put in. So we're just going to shut it down. we're just going to shut it down. And what does that mean? That means less gas. Less gas, same supply or same demand or more demand. That means higher prices for you, which means more price inflation. Are you getting the picture here? Closure of the Houston refinery would increase the risk of fuel shortages, of course, add pressure to fuel prices, push them up, soaring due primarily to President Biden's control and gas policies, but exacerbated by Russia's invasion, because we're losing diesel supply to Russia as well. Leave the United States structurally short of refining capacity for the first time in decades. The U.S. doesn't have enough refining capacity. So you hear about the U.S. being energy independent. We produce enough energy, but we don't have the refineries here to turn it into gasoline. We don't have the refineries here because no one's willing to invest the money that it's needed because of the long payback. And so this is a pretty big problem. There are no temporary fixes for this. This problem is not going to be getting better in the short term. To get refineries back on could take 5 years, take 10 years. It takes years to do this. In the meantime, it's not good for the economy. Like I said, higher prices are to come because the price of energy is underpins the price of everything else. I don't have a lot of good news. So what do we do about this? Well, one, we understand that this is going to be a problem. Now, depending on where I live and what I do for work, it's going to affect me more. If I'm in the Northeast, it's going to affect me a lot more than if I'm in the Southwest. All right? What are you going to do about it? Well, you need to be prepared for higher costs. So probably cut back on some expenses, start saving money to be prepared for when this inevitably goes up. More importantly, now that you know the real situation, the real problem, the policies that are causing this problem, remember, it all worked 2 years ago. Go talk about this. Go share it. Spread the brush fires in the minds of men. Like this video so more people see it. Hit that subscribe button so you know when I put new videos out. Share the video if you want, but at a minimum, please just go talk about it. That's what I got. To your success. I'm out.